Hi there everybody, I'm Savvy and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video of a Warlock build that I use in this game from time to time. And I know it's been a little bit since I've done one of these, and to explain why, I have been sick for the past few days, and I've had a pretty stuffy nose and a not nice cough, so I'd rather wait to do a video like this again until I recovered from my cough mainly, and yeah, it's pretty much gone. It's here still here and there, but it's not as bad as it used to be. But today we are going to be going over my build for my Strand Warlock, which I think is very interesting. Strand is actually one of my top 3 out of the 5 subclasses. I actually put it at number 2 on my list, number 1 being Solar, number 3 actually being Arc. And I'm going to show you exactly why it is my top 3 favorites and what I use in terms of aspects and fragments, as well as demonstrating how these things work when you are playing in PvE. So, where I am right now is actually before entering the Blooming Deep, which is in the Pale Heart. So, it's actually in the Blooming, hence the Blooming Deep. So, anyway, without further ado, let's go into Strand and see what sort of things I have going on. Okay, so here we are in the Brood Weaver screen, and we have our aspects and our fragments. So just like with my solar build, and I'll link the solar build and the arc build at the end of this video, so you guys will be able to see those in case you're interested in those build videos for my warlock. But let us begin with our aspects. So we have Mindspun Invocation, and there's a lot of text here, so Mindspun Invocation is formless, shapeless, until you say otherwise. Shape reality as you see fit. Your grapple, shackle grenade, and threadling grenade have enhanced functionality. Your grapple melee spawns 3 threadling eggs. Q-press. Hold to consume your shackle grenade and activate Weaver's trance. Final blows while Weaver's trance is active create a suspending detonation. Q-press. Hold to consume your threadling grenade and immediately generate 5 perched threadlings. So, there's a lot of text here, and on the right side it actually defines 2 things, threadling and suspend. Starting with threadling is a creature woven from pure strand matter that seeks nearby targets and attacks, dealing damage. The target is immobilized by a web of strand matter, lifting them into the air. While suspended, guardians are unable to move freely, combatants are unable to move or fire their weapon, and unstoppable champions are stunned. Suspended targets unwind into a tangle when defeated. So, I'm actually going to demonstrate this here now so you can see the impact of suspend. So, I'm actually using the shackle grenade, which is my favorite grenade to use on Warlock. And there is the threadling grenade, which can show off the threadlings, and there is grapple, but for this video, I'm only going to be showing the shackle grenade and how well it works. I am also going to be showing you guys my exotic that I use for both as a weapon and as my armor piece for this build. So just to keep that in mind too. But let me demonstrate the shackle grenade because there are enemies in front of me right now. So as you can see, there are enemies here, and if I just throw this out, you could see right away that they get tangled. And I have a tangle that appeared as well, and you could probably tell that I'm using Osteo Striga. That is actually important for a build like this too. That I use from time to time. I don't use it constantly with this build, but yeah. But that's what Shackle Grenade does. But as you saw there, I created a tangle, and when I shot that tangle, it did a little burst. And that's going to be very important because of what the Wanderer does. So if we look at the Wanderer, it says, a ring of twisted silver, set with a glittering emerald, deftly, expertly, effortlessly. One possibility is unsown and another is born. Tangles you throw attach to targets and detonate into a suspending burst. Destroying a tangle creates a suspending burst after a short delay. Threadling final blows create a tangle. And that introduces a new definition right here, a new term, tangle. A knot of strand matter swirling with potential. Tangles can be shot and destroyed or picked up and thrown, dealing damage. Defeating targets afflicted by any strand debuff will unwind them and create a tangle. So I can also demonstrate real quick how a tangle can be used by me throwing it at an enemy or group of enemies. So let's go ahead and do that real quick, shall we? Alright, so I've suspended a few targets, but now I have a tangle. So I'm just throw this tangle, and look at that. It suspends my targets, and then they are immobilized. And another tangle can be created as well, just depending on the circumstances. And sometimes what just happened there is an enemy was destroyed by the tangle impact itself, and there weren't enough enemies close enough, well, not enough, but there wasn't any enemies close enough to be influenced by that tangle to be suspended again. So sometimes it can work like, sometimes it doesn't work 100% of the time, and then other times you get really lucky. And the reason why I chose Blooming Deep as well is because there are a lot of enemies that spawns in this lost sector. So this is a great way to demonstrate this. Alright, so let's move on to the next section of this. So back in Broodweaver, we have 4 fragments, just like with Arc, Solar, and Void as well, and also Stasis. Just the normal ones. In Prismatic, you have 6 of them, which is a lot. But for this one, we have 4, and we're going to go through each one individually. So starting from the left side, we have Thread of Finality. Finish your final blows, create threadlings. So if I finish an enemy, it'll just, as it says, it'll create a threadling. So before we continue reading, let me go ahead and demonstrate that as well. So I'm going to try my best not to defeat this enemy right here. Get rid of that Acolyte Eye out of the way first. But I'm going to go ahead and weaken this, finish it, and look at that. It creates a tangle, just like so. And I can demonstrate that again by finishing this guy. And it's a little tangle that can go up against walls or ground, and it could do all kinds of things. Or what it could also do is, if it can't find a target, it'll come back, and as you can see on the bottom left here, we have what is called threadlings. So as the definition says, it's the creature that seeks enemies, but when it comes to you, you have it kind of floating around. So I'm going to do an emote. You can see that there's one here that's going around me in a circle, but you can actually have up to 5, as there are 5 boxes that can be filled up. We have 1 right here, and then there's 4 left. So what this does is, when I have my threadling with me, and if I start to attack an enemy, my threadling will go out, and it will destroy an enemy. And as you saw, the threadling created a tangle there, and then I use that tangle to suspend my enemies. So this is like why it's so fantastic to have this kind of build that I have with my Warlock on Strand. So that's just a way to demonstrate the finisher, but also the threadlings, and also a better way to demonstrate the tangles as well. Back to Broodweaver, we have 3 more fragments to go over, and the next one on this list is going to be Thread of Generation, which says dealing damage generates grenade energy. And it's pretty self-explanatory, so if you're doing damage to targets or really anything, it's more of it's general. It doesn't say anything specific as to what you're doing damage to. Just as long as you're doing damage, it'll generate grenade energy. And to counteract that, it'll give you minus 10 discipline, which is okay, at least for the build that I have, because as you can see on the bottom left, I have triple 100s, 100 discipline, 100 recovery, and 100 resilience. So I'm good there. The next one on our list is going to be Thread of Binding, and super final blows emit a suspending burst from the target. So that's going to be very interesting because I am actually going to be showing off the super as well. And it's actually pretty good to do for both boss targets and for crowds of enemies. So I'll be showing that soon. This gives you plus 10 resilience, which is good, which is giving me the 101 resilience there. And it also has that suspend has the suspend there for you to look at as well. For the final one, we have Thread of Continuity. Now, there's a couple things that are new with this one that we have not gone over, but Thread of Continuity is suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration, which is really good. And so that's why our targets were able to be suspended for as long as they have been. And as you can see, a new thing here called Sever has the definition of the target's connections to the world around them are cut, and their outgoing damage is significantly reduced. Severed targets unwind into a tangle when defeated. So that's really cool. And then we have Unravel, which is the target is permeated with destructive strand matter. As they take additional damage, they create unraveled projectiles that seek out nearby targets. Unraveling rounds from your strand weapons pierce the shields of barrier champions and stun them. Unraveled targets unwind into a tangle when defeated. So what's interesting about this is that if you have anything that's affected with strand and is, let's say a boss, for example, if you have a lot of strand on that enemy, you're going to see a lot of strand bits shooting out and then coming back and hitting the target again. It could be one, it could be two, it could just a multitude of them coming out. As long as there's more damage coming into it, it'll continue to happen. Sometimes it'll happen on its own as well, but if you really want to set it off, you might want to continuously do damage to that target, so that way the threads that come out and come back in to do extra damage will happen over time. So one of the last things I want to go over, which actually works really well with my build, is the Arcane Needle, which is a sling a woven needle that will embed in your target, unraveling them. Activate your melee ability again to chain up to 2 additional attacks. So you can have 3 of these in total, which is why I like this really well. And it also works the same on Prismatic as well. You can have 3 of these melees as well. And the reason why, and this is the only melee we get for Warlock on Strand, so I mean, the best thing to use for this is going to be our exotic. So I'm going to show that off in just a second. So going back out here, we have our exotic armor that I'm going to be going over real quick. And this one in particular is for gauntlets, and these are called Necrotic Grips. So if you haven't seen my prismatic build, I recommend watching that because I actually I didn't go over the class item that I did. I did that in a short because I forgot to mention it in there. But what's very interesting is that I do use solipsism that has Spirit of Necrotic, also Spirit of the Swarm, which is really good too, but the one important thing here is Spirit of Necrotic. So this is where it gets the poison from, is from Necrotic Grips. So that's why I really like it so much, because what it does is it's the Grasp of the Devourer. It says damaging a target with melee poisons them, dealing increasing damage over time. Defeating a poison target spreads the condition. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons of sorrow. And weapons of sorrow are a lot of things that can do poison damage, so such as Thorn or even Osteo Striga. Those are some best kind of examples to use, and that's why I have Osteo Striga here, because what this does is it's a screaming swarm, fires a stream of sentient toxic projectiles that track the targeted enemy. And this is really good. As you saw as I was shooting enemies with it before, it does that poison damage, but Necrotic Grips does the exact same thing, and that's why both of these working together is actually really good, and it spreads the poison as we go along. But there's some really cool things about this as well that I think we could use, and I can't really... So like that enemy right there just got infected, and then we have... And even, let's say I don't have I'm not using my Threadling or my arcane needle, I'm just mailing something that has low health on it, as you saw there. It'll still do the poison effect on enemies. That's a really cool thing. You can see these little threads that are going around too, how it comes out and then comes back in. It's really cool. So I like it a lot. Really good. And I'm just going to use my weapon here, so as you can see, the poison is spreading, and it just... I mean, these are low-level enemies, so obviously they're going to go away pretty easily, but I really think that this demonstrates really well. Let's move on to one of the very last things. Alright, so the very last thing that I'm going to be showing and reading to you guys is the super itself, which is Needle Storm. F-press, conjure a hail of deadly woven needles. After embedding themselves in the environment, the needles will reweave into a host of threadlings. Threadlings you create will return to you and perch if they can't find any nearby targets. Damaging targets with your weapons or melee will send out perched threadlings to attack. So this is actually really good in a lot of situations. I've actually used this super before. I actually have used it a lot on Prismatic as well because I like the way that it can damage bosses as well, because I've actually used this on raid bosses, and it can do some significant damage, especially if there are the right amount of debuffs on bosses and the right amount of buffs to your weapons and super, etc., etc. But this is also good for ad clearing as well, which I can demonstrate in this lost sector because, as I said before, there are a lot of enemies in here. There's a lot of enemies in the middle part and at the end. So let's go and find some group of enemies and demonstrate that. I almost fell. Alright, here's a bunch of enemies, so I'm just gonna throw it here. And you can see it spread out, and look at all those threadlings come out as well. It's really, really good. Really good indeed. The only problem is that it was trying to attack something that has some prismatic abilities, which isn't really that good, but, you know, it's fine. It's whatever. But even with these prismatic abilities, not really so much prismatic abilities, but something that gives us the equivalent of prismatic with its ability recharge and everything like that, we're able to clear this out pretty easily for the most part, because the way that I have this build set up is actually pretty powerful. So just like that, and it clears the area. So the very last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to demonstrate at the very end just everything that I can do, including super, melee, Osteo Striga, my Necrotic Grips, and everything, so that way you guys get a sense of how well this can clear ads and do the damage that it needs to do. So I'll see you guys in a second. Well, I think that demonstrated that quite well, especially right at the tail end there. And I hope you guys agree with that as well. This was a lot of fun to do. I do like doing these build videos, but I do know that we're going to be running out of these pretty soon because we only have 2 left to do, besides going over some mods that I use for some of my builds as well, which pretty rough. They're roughly the same throughout, but I can do a video on that. But if you guys want me to do another build video, which I do plan on doing one, but I'm not really sure what I want to do next. The ones that we have left is Stasis and Void. So you guys can let me know in the comments down below which one you want me to do next. And I'll be sure to do that if I see any suggestions for those as well. I could also probably put in the community section a poll if you guys want to vote there. Eventually, I'll probably put it up. Probably not the day of that this video is going up. But what's funny is I'm actually recording this the day that it's actually being uploaded, so this is pretty funny. But anyway, I'm talking too much. Um, if you guys did enjoy this build video, please be sure to leave a like and don't forget to hit subscribe as well because that lets me know that you guys enjoy the content on the channel and would like to see more. I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Barry Medley for being a member of the channel, and you can become a member too with hitting the join button down below. I've been Savvy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys. See you later.